You know melancholy, baby. Oh no.
I want you to hear the loving remark that my husband just made. He says, "You guys are horrible." But he's going to love it, and I'm just thrilled that so many of you are here today. Some have come long distances, and some are right here in town, and we're just delighted that you're all here. I sort of want to explain what we're going to do, and then I'm going to turn it over to the MC. But we thought it would be fun. We didn't want to do This Is Your Life because that's been done. But we did think it would be fun to do These Were the Shows. He said, because he's so old, he just said there's not enough time anyway. But we did think we would do These Were the Shows. So we've got some people hidden in a little room back here, and we're going to test his memory and see if he can recognize the voice or the situation. And we'll be bringing them out in a little bit. I'd like to introduce the MC for These Were the Shows, Joel Johansson. And Joel, I forgot to ask, you are the class of?
76.
Northland High School class of 76. So he's going to get us started.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce these fine musicians. Back there on the drums, Mark Henderson on drums. Over here on we got him on the bottom, Andy Woodson, a graduate of Fort Hays. And a graduate of Hard Knocks, Tom Collins on the piano. This is a little medley I wrote, including a few of the songs from the many plays that you directed over the years. Okay, we're going to get right started off right now. Turn back the hands of time way back when in Northland High School. Mr. Lewis, do you remember this voice?
Chuck, I don't want to start any heavy rumors here today, but I am the first daughter, your very first daughter, before Jenny.
Hi. Faye Gann played my daughter, I don't know, about 300-400 years ago at Central High School in Time Out for Ginger, which was the first show I did at Northland High School. Yes. Yes.
Moving right along, do you remember this voice?
Well, let's see. I think I was headed about halfway across the stage one day when Mr. Lewis and Mr. McAfee ran me down and said, "We've got this thing for you to do." I said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "Well, we've got this idea for this character for a school mascot." They said, "It'd be a great thing for you to do because we can't think of anything of anybody else who's really stupid enough to do it." And I said, "Well, let me think about it." "Well, don't think too long because there's a big line of people who want to do this." And I said, "Well, I believe that." But I really wanted to do it simply because a man one of the first men in my life who told me I could when I believed that I could, asked me to do it.
Hi, Barney. How are you? Barney Houchins, who was the first Viking mascot at Northland High School. You can take the helmet off now, Barney. It's been long enough.
So often we forget the people behind the scenes. Do you remember this voice? These voices, I should say.
We are the daughters of your friend from that other school. We would like to highlight some of our memories of Mr. Lewis. We have known him since we were babies because of our father's camaraderie with Mr. Lewis by being the drama teacher at Brookhaven. So we will just touch on our times at Northland. 1975 to 1978, 1979 to 1982. In the impossible years of high school, I spent a lot of time with my friend Maine and enjoyed drama with Mr. Lewis. Tom Sawyer had many adventures. One time we experimented with the effects of gamma rays on Man in the Moon marigolds. We really could get in a lot of trouble on that stage. Mame and I used to stay up late and be the night watch for the house down the street. Tom always used to say that if we wait until dark, the music man will play. How romantic in the dark theater. One night, Mame and I observed the haunting of Hill House. We saw ghosts going up the down staircases. When we checked out our bathroom, we found Ring Around the Bathtub. We all know that because of God's favorites and the very special ways that He has touched each and every one of us, we have all grown up to be very special people. As you, Mr. Lewis, depart on your next voyage, remember that any of us will be here to help you if you need a boost, just like you have always done for us. Good luck and best wishes.
How are you? Oh, you're all the way from Hawaii. My goodness. Hi, Kirsten.
How are you?
Fine.
Congratulations.
Kirsten and Mr. Wilt, whose father taught drama at Brookhaven High School, and Kirsta's all the way from Hawaii, I believe.
Not quite.
Not quite. Her husband's in the Marine Corps, I believe, and Mista lives here in town. They were both part of the Northland High School group. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So Mr. Lewis said to the guys up in the light booth, "Is she done with her costume change yet?" Well, she's almost got it zipped up. And then she sang, "That old black magic that I knew so well." Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for teaching me about discipline and not telling me what bodacious meant.
You didn't have to dress up like this. So. Thank you very much. Liana Garlinger, who's all the way from Minnesota, I believe. And she must be going somewhere really important today to wear that kind of dress.
Moving right along in the years, you remember this voice.
It was a very hot summer in 1973. Northland High School had no air conditioning, and the company thought that day that we would go to Delaware Lake and take a little swim before the show. Well, unfortunately, I arrived there and back, and during the period of time where I was changing into my costume, I realized I had no underwear. As a result of this, I tried Band-Aids. Trust me, they don't work. My blouse was white, my face was red. Needless to say, there was a young actress by the name of Cindy Finicum who came to my rescue, and I managed to wear her bra that afternoon during the show. As a result of that, there's a lot of things you'll learn in the theater, probably in your future, and a lot of rules that will come and go. But understand that Chuck Lewis, rule number 15 is that everyone will wear their own underwear.
Thank you. What does this say? Oh. Nancy Shelton Williams, who, yes, did spawn that rule, and I still quote it every once in a while, that you must wear your own underwear. You are not permitted to borrow. We just had the opportunity to go this, I think it was past weekend, to see 1940 Radio's Hour in Grove City at Little Theater off Broadway, directed by Nancy Shelton Williams.
Olivia, you have been a very bad friend. Fly is up in our apartment right now getting it up with Jesus, the one man who showed me what true self-discipline meant and gave me this accent.
Brian Curry from Fort Hays, who was in the female version of The Odd Couple, played one of the Spanish brothers. His watchword was self-discipline. And he learned, and we did too. And he has a great accent.
You swam the moat?
All right. I was a little anxious. My friend Sir Harry, he's still out there. He told me you had an opening for a princess. Any princess. I figured the early bird. Anyway, here I am. Who's the lucky man? Hey, naughty, naughty, is it you? I'm shy, I confess it, I'm shy. Can't you guess that this confident air is a mask that I wear 'cause I'm shy? I'm sorry, I had to spray the water, it just had to have the same effect.
It's Jeanette Wolf. I like the hat. Jeanette's from Fort Hays and did the part of Winifred in Once Upon a Mattress. Is that why you wanted to score, so you could do this? Is this okay for her audition in acting, Mrs. Vaughn? Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
In my first appearance on stage, Mr. Lewis made me play a pregnant teenager. The next time I was on stage, I was a teenage runaway. And for my last appearance at Fort Hays, I did a scene of Taming of the Shrew with Brian Curry, and I got a little carried away and almost knocked him unconscious.
Kedra Simmons from Fort Hays. We have this little running battle that she keeps asking me, you know, telling me how mean I am, and I keep telling her how hateful she is. But we're going to miss each other. Thank you.
Yeah, I wrote my own song. Want to hear it? Well, I'm going to sing it anyway. Here's my band and backup group. We're known in these parts as the Hootlums. Ready, guys? Ready. Spring's here, baby. Know how I know? You pulled out your frisbee, said, let's put on a show. We went to the park, eyes on the glow. Spring's here, baby. That's how I know. You see, you toss it to me, I toss it back to you. Just the way you taught it, put me on a rocket. Toss it, toss it, toss it. Come on and toss it. Toss your frisbee to me.
Thank you. Jennifer Snuggs, who did that song into a vacuum cleaner in Voices from the High School, which was her first, in fact, these, I keep calling them the babies. These were the kids the first year at Fort Hays that I had to say, this is a stage, this is the way you walk on a stage, and we've come a long way. Thank you. Lines, lines, lines.
And moving right along, do you remember this voice, Mr. Lewis?
During this show, we had to plan an elaborate chase scene, and the costumes the few of us women had on were similar to togas from Saturday Night Live. We were doing a fruit dance, and we had to wear grapes. The problem was, where were we supposed to put the grapes? It ended up with Mr. McAfee and Mr. Lewis. They ended up strategically placed in our upper chest region. So if you remember, 1 Grecian urn, 2 Grecian urns, trickle, 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 trickle.
Hi, Billy. How are you?
I couldn't put it in grade.
I know. You always did. We had this chase scene, and one night in rehearsal, because it regenerated itself. And so one night in rehearsal, McAfee and I decided to see how long it would go. I don't know, we just sat there and watched them run around. They just kept going back to to first position and just keep right on going. So it went for 10 or 15 minutes, I think.
At least.
Debbie Kemper Armitage was Eulalie McKechnie Shin and Music Man, and a number of other things that I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I will. Thank you.
Now, another voice from the playing stand.
When we toured a children's musical, which by the way was written by Jean Lewis, we went to Columbus Public Elementary Schools, and at one of the schools, for some reason, the flash pots that went off went haywire. All I remember is feeling this wave of heat hit my back and thinking, keep acting or Mr. Lewis will kill you. I almost got my hair burned off for this show.
He had to make it tough on the old guy.
I know. Susie, or Suzanne Laird as she's known now, what was it, Rumpelstiltskin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the next thing I know, she came off stage, and if you look her hair was longer then, but the back of it was singed about 1/4 of an inch up. More than that.
I was one of the students who was almost lost in New York City when we were walking down Broadway, and a man in a red sombrero said, "No, come on in, it's amateur night."
Good to see you. Just wait a minute, you're not getting away that easy. Jim Laird, yeah. Actually, he didn't go in for amateur night, but one of the girls wanted to go in for amateur night. That's what it was. Jim Laird, who is Susie's little brother. Little brother, yes. Little brother.
She's my little sister.
And he worked backstage and had a very important role in The Miracle Worker, because if he would have said the fateful word, "she's dead," as the doctor at the beginning of the show, the play would have been over in about 5 minutes. Thank you, Jim.
Now let's go back a few years. You remember this voice?
Mrs. Gibbs advises, choose a least important day. That will be important enough. Well, the day that I finally walked down that long ramp to your room and saw my name on the right list was quite an important day for me. You changed me from a professional usher into a stage actress. So don't be grouchy, Mr. Lewis. Come out and smell my heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't it wonderful?
You even had to wear the outfit, huh? Thank you. Let me peek at your name again.
Oh, no.
Chris Johansson is what her name was when she was at Northland High School. It's Swisher now, Chris Johansson Swisher. And Chris was on her way to becoming a professional usher. And it's one of those things that we do as teachers. We say, well, she's tried out so many times, maybe it's time to give her a chance. And later on, she got to wear orthopedic shoes on stage and do all sorts of things. But our town would not have been the same without her. And she's even got the outfit that she wore, I believe.
Right, and I would like everybody else who's worn, please stand.
Okay.
Anybody else would like to sign this one? It's Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Edelweiss, every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright, you look happy to meet me, blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever.
I thought I'd get through this, but no, not with that song. Paul Hutchison did Captain Von Trapp in Sound of Music, was the stage manager in our town, and I noticed there's a guy back there, gray-haired, Dwayne Pelkey, who asked me one time, how do you keep Paul Hutchison in school? And I said, I don't know, I just keep putting him in shows. And but Paul now is a Methodist minister in South Carolina, Rockville, South Carolina. And we surprised him last summer when we showed up on a Sunday morning worship. And I think he was probably flabbergasted at that point, and he's done the same thing for me today.
Hey, Bax.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know, for years, Mr. Lewis was my friend, my teacher, and my mentor. And I never got mad at him. So we went through rehearsals, and I said the words to the song the whole time. Until that night, that dress rehearsal night. And all of a sudden, as I start to say, hush, little baby, don't say a word. There's a cut. And he makes me sing the song. But I did. Thanks.
Stacy, what do you have to cheat you? All the words to the song, huh?
That I never sang.
Oh, okay. Stacy Gilg played Annie Sullivan in Miracle Worker. I think about I've done the show about 4 times now. A show that never ceases to amaze me. I keep telling people I think the show's director-proof. Anybody can direct it, and because it has such a great appeal to audiences. But she eventually did do the song, and it meant a lot to me, and I think it meant a lot to her too. She now works for the State Department, state of Ohio. She's a Republican, but that's all right.
So Horton just sat there the whole winter through. And then came the springtime with troubles anew. Little friends gathered round and they shouted with glee, "Look, Horton the elephant's up in a tree." They taunted and teased him. They yelled, "How absurd! Horton the elephant thinks he's the bird." Then they laughed, and they laughed, and they all ran away, and Horton was lonely. He wanted to play, but he sat on that egg and continued to say, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%.
Debbie Hurd. How are you?
Hello.
Nice to see you. I just ran across a couple letters you sent me the other day.
And I ran across yours too.
Debbie, it's Clegg now. But Debbie took that piece of material about Horton Hatches the Egg by Dr. Seuss.
It was thrust upon me.
Well, actually, she took that piece of material. I just handed it to her. She took it. She didn't have to take it.
I was a person that always believed in dreams. When we did this play, there was a wedding, and I was a bride. And when I walked down the aisle and carried the flowers, I looked more closely at the flowers and I saw something that wasn't there during rehearsal. It was a small wooden mouse. And I kept that mouse for a lot of reasons. And when I got married, I carried it in a bouquet that I carried down the aisle for real. And since that time, a lot of dreams have come true.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. What is this?
Oh, that's for
These
later.
all these. Oh, that's for later. I see. Missy Her Kendall. See, I can't remember their married names. I can remember them, because they're all still kids. And, they're all adults and they're grown up and they have kids. Missy is Debbie's sister. There's 2 more. I think they're here somewhere, I'm sure. I ran across a picture of you, Debbie, and I think your sister Marcia, and they were all 3 dressed as nuns. It was, I think, their mother's fondest wish that they be nuns. But Missy played Emily in Our Town and did a number of other things. She's an independent film producer. I was going through the Ohio Film Board notebook of who to contact if you want to do a film in Ohio, and there was her name. And I thought, boy, next time I want to do a film, I know who to call. So, and she also had an award-winning piece on educational broadcasting called, I think, The Winds of War, right? God, where's all this stuff in my mind? I can't, and, you know, you're talking to them. This is the man who carries his children's birthdays on a piece of paper in his wallet because I can't remember that kind of stuff. So thank you very much.
Well, Chuck, you got me into a tutu for a play, but I declined on wearing it today for obvious reasons.
Oh, wait a minute. Come on back up here. This is the next of her clan, Gretchen. And Gretchen was more behind the scenes, but we did get her into, I think the costume was a leotard and a tutu and cowboy boots, right? I won't even tell you what it was about, but anyway, there's a picture of it somewhere around here.
I tried to burn all of them.
Yeah, I have them, yes. Gretchen now is an EEG technician with Children's Hospital and has done some work with Robert Redford. At the Sundance Institute that he runs out there, I think one of her first assignments was to pick up Carl Malden at the airport, and it was all she could do but to say something about his nose. And thank you, Gretchen.
Please excuse the interruptions. We have one further announcement. We have a green and white Grand Prix in the parking lot. License plate number QA56. Thank you.
Hi, Chip. How are you doing? This is their little brother. And that is an actual announcement that he made one day at Northland High School. Green. And I stood there as he said it, and I thought, you know, he didn't say that, did he? I mean, did he really say that? And after it was over, I said, that's Grand Prix. Grand Prix. I said, well, that's not what it looked like to me. But Chipper was more behind the scenes than anything else, and we have a lot to thank Chip for, except when are you going to come up and finish our kitchen? Chip is now a carpenter. He started out in college and decided that he didn't particularly like that, and so he liked working with tools and wood, and he'd always done that. And he's now a carpenter, and when we got ready to do our kitchen, you know, I guess that's what you do. You call in students that you've had before. And he did a magnificent job. So if you want your kitchen done, here's the guy, you know.
Yes? The four of us are not finished with him yet. We love you, Chucky. Oh, yes, we do. You taught us everything, and we've been true. We all got infamous because of you. Oh, Chucky, we thank you. With loving apologies to Dr. Seuss and my favorite elephant. Side Chuck, a drama coach, long in the tooth. I'm tired and I'm weary sitting here in this booth. From teaching and being here day after day, it's work and I'm stopping. I'd much rather play. I'd cease and retire, take off for a rest. 31 is enough, and I've done my best. He flipped through his clipboard, page after page. Then all sorts of memories wandered across the stage. Trademark sayings, scene 1. Thanks for the memories, Bob Hope.
Go ahead, makes my day. For this one.
Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. When old Target.
You get the idea. Things that unmistakably identify certain people. So where have you heard this? You'll leave, you'll become famous. Will you remember me? Nah.
You guys can't get together. I'll call up some old stage crew members.
Dwight! Where are you? Yoko!
Hey, I'm black. It'll disappear.
Scene 2. Shenanigans. Everyone who toilet papered Mr. Lewis's house, step forward.
Well, at least when we got caught, Jean had the courtesy, after we cleaned up our mess, to serve us donuts and cookies.
Scene here is the additions to the imaginary envelope. All right, let's just start with the top of page 22.
Yes, it's the lawyer. They're up to no good. Toinette, what am I to do? Will you have me? Your father's obstinate. Your stepmother's much worse. She's clever. Oh, and so are you. Clever enough to see we're in a hole.
All right, switch parts, please.
Yes, it's the lawyer. They're up to no good. Toinette, what do I do?
Stage crew jokes. How many stage crew members can you hide in the sight curtains from the study hall teacher or when Mr. Lewis is in a bad mood?
Scene 3. Things that make you want to go, Okay, well, I'll just come out and say with it. Mr. Lewis has an ornery streak. You know what I'm talking about? His motto is seize the opportunity. He can smell an innocent, trusting soul in 10 paces. I know? Never mind. The prototype for the original dumb blonde was Jody McDaniels when I was in school. And I remember the day that Chuck and his co-workers in the building sent Jody out to find the dehydrated water. Jody went to the art room where Mr. Rabel, the art teacher, gave her a jar with a lid and sent her on up to the chemistry lab. Making her circuit, she came back into the classroom, walked over to him, handed him the jar and said, you're supposed to be careful how you open it, otherwise it'll participate.
Another one is, you need the Skybook. You need to go get it. You know, it's that thing
Where
that...
did I get it?
At Sears. Sears has everything. Just put it on Chuck's account.
Nowadays have gone after debtors, cleanses, or stretchers.
The elevator passes, the tape eraser, and the dreaded corner bolt.
And my favorite, the polka dot paint.
Seriously though, but not too. Mr. Lewis has been many things to us. The memories go on. We had a party trying to think of what we were going to do for this, remembering all the things. He's a consummate clown. He's a friend and our teacher. He planted seeds.
I always knew he was a climber. He could really
spread more manure. In essence, though, over a span of 13 years, the four of us were participating in some of 22 some shows that Chuck put together.
Actually, there were 5 of us. We brought our cousin from California. We weren't enough. And she joined us for summer theater in 1973. We had some pretty excellent times.
He's really put a lot of light into all of our lives and helped make us who we are today.
Taught us to live our lives for every minute, and we're very grateful. When I did my first show as a high school teacher, because that's what I did after I graduated from college, following in footsteps, Chuck sent me a note. He mentioned that he found a couple letters from me while I found one from him. And he ended one note with, "Dear world, I pass you like an orange to a child. I can no more with you. Do what you will." Thanks, Chuck. You're brilliant.
Thank you, and these were the shows.
There are some other folks who were dying for an opportunity to say a few words about Chuck, so we're going to give him a chance. I mean, fair's fair. I think we'll start with your own kids. How about that?
This is kind of strange coming up here in front of my dad without being on a stage. I remember since when I was 5 years old and I first fell off the front of the Northland High School stage that I wanted to do something in the performing arts business. So now I'm an audio engineer. I do sound for bands and work at the Newport Music Hall here in Columbus. And I find it rather humorous when I work with bands or with crew members who know nothing about upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right, and all that other kind of stuff. I worked the Genesis show at the Ohio State University Stadium over the last couple days, and there were probably about 80 crew members pushing cases around and stuff. And a lot of the guys were new on the crew, and it's so weird growing up on a stage and some guy hands you a case and says that goes downstage left by the PA. Sure, fine. And they hand a guy another case and you go upstage center, and the guy goes, huh? I'm like, oh man, what's this guy doing here? So it's kind of a strange thing. But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, from the home office of 6566 Calgary Court, the top 10 memory list. Hey, will you go get the electric board stretcher?
Nougat.
Number 8, those crazy football field phones never work.
I have flowers in my mouth and I can't get them out.
I got your nose.
Hippo attack.
It was just a stupid 10-cent fuse.
Yeah.
The lingering taste of magenta poster paint.
And number 2, hey Tim, go stand next to Susie Laird. And ladies and gentlemen, the number 1 favorite memory, our favorite pickup line.
Hey, babe.
Our dad knows Dwight Yoakam.
Some of those memories were sort of inside. I think for Jenny's sake, I want you all to know that she hates the word nougat. So you can all now
nougat.
share with us in reminding her, saying nougat whenever you see her now. And her memory about having flowers stuck in her teeth. She had an appliance in her mouth, and once we were with stage crew, drama club at
dental appliance.
Oh.
Don't think she had a refrigerator in her mouth.
No, it wasn't a mixer or a blender. It was a dental appliance, as Chuck correctly mentioned, and she was playing with an artificial flower, and she got it stuck in the appliance, and so we had to go to the first aid center at Cedar Point and get it removed. Okay, there are some other folks who wanted a chance to say something, and Chuck Deo told me that he's been waiting for years to tell this story.
Before Chuck gets up here, anything this man says is an absolute lie. He has never told the truth in his entire life. How are you?
I had a brief stint as the activities coordinator at Northland in 1982. Homecoming, and with coaching football with Mr. Howe and being classes and everything. One thing I forgot to do was to decorate the stadium. So he reminded me the stadium hadn't been decorated, and so I hurried out and put some decorations on, and Charlie never let me live that down, my decorated stadium. So I thought maybe I would share a little something with you. There's been so many nice things said about him that maybe we ought to tell the truth. We go back a long way, Charlie and I. We grew up in the Bottoms, and a situation that happened, sorta. I had a good time with it. I would send kids down to ask Mr. Lewis about this situation, and he would in turn retaliate, and it made school day fun. We used to, I don't know. We used to build these forts out of trees, and hang out down on the railroad track. And the winos that lived down there, they'd come and live in our forts. So one day, Charlie and I are in the fort, and the one wino that we recognized was up on the railroad track, and he was trying to jump on a train. And there was a boxcar came by, and the door was open. The guy jumped up on it, and he was kicking his legs trying to get in, and he fell out. And so I mentioned to Charlie, I said, holy cow, looked at me like that train ran over that fellow's legs. And so we went running up to the railroad track, and for years I've been criticized for taking the guy's billfold, but that's nothing compared to what Charlie did. I was going to go run and get help, and I looked down and I said, Charlie, what are you doing? And he said, I'm going to take these shoes. And so the guy ain't going to need them no more. And I thought that was so terrible, but the worst part about it all, the whole thing, for probably a year or so after that, he complained because they were too tight on his feet. Matter of fact, there's a pair of brown shoes just about like that right there. Oh, Charlie, we enjoyed it. We had some good times, and I'm glad to come here and share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I get to retaliate. One of the first times I ever ran into Charlie was on a football game, and Wayne Rittenhouse was sitting back there, and we were playing out at Reynoldsburg. It was a JV game, and we were all, Wayne was walking around with this bag, and he said, I want you to put all your valuables in here, and I'll put it someplace. And, everybody was putting in a wallet or a watch or a ring or something. Charlie stands there and goes, and flips out his whole front teeth. You think those are real? No, he flips out his whole front teeth, his whole plate, and Wayne just looked at him, couldn't figure out what to say. He wasn't going to touch that bag again. I know that. You never know where those teeth might have been. So.
I think another coach wanted a chance.
You think you had it bad in class or on stage? I was working a press box, and I didn't know him too well. I came to the press box and I was keeping score. Someone said something that was loud, and Charlie's the voice of the Vikings. He let out such a wail and belch that the clock went off. I hit it accidentally and I shut it off. And he started yelling, "What's going on?" He scared that whole booth. 2 guys left. I never wanted to go back. I told Wickheiser, "This guy's worse than Howe." The last thing that he did, we were together, and I don't know if anyone knows this, his buddy, Mr. Pollock, we were playing Beechcroft, and I was in trouble this game. It was right after the first period, I think, and we're losing by about 6 or 8. And Charlie's my PA announcer. He sits right beside me. I think he sits there to find out what I'm doing. Was it 6? Yeah, I think so. So Mr. Pollock comes running up and sits beside me. And Charlie bends over just to hear what he has to say. "Well, Mr. Pollock's bribing me. You gotta win this game. Do you know I live in that community? You've got to win this game." And Charlie's listening to all this stuff. And I said, "Mr. Pollock, don't you think I'm trying to win this game?" And I think Charlie was going, "No, he isn't. No, he isn't." So Christmas came, and I thought he was kidding. He brings me a fruitcake. And then the year after, he brings me another fruitcake. You know, Charlie, to this day, I don't know why you ever brought me a fruitcake unless you think I'm a fruit with what happened in that game. Because I told Mr. Pollock, "You can take this team and you can coach it." And Charlie started clapping. And to this day, I'll tell you, he's one of the finest guys I met. I saw him in service merchandise. I said, "Charlie, how many years you get to go?" He says, "You'll hear about it because you're going to be at a party coming up." Thanks for inviting me, Chuck. The best of luck. You're one of the top-notch guys around. Take care.
Thank you.
Gee, and all this time Chuck thought Art liked those fruitcakes. Another former student of Chuck's wanted a chance to say a few words. Ginger, you ready? It's Virginia Tyler now, but I still can't make myself remember that. She'll be Ginger to me, I'm afraid.
Actually, there's more to Mr. Lewis's past than Northland High School. There happens to be Weather Vane Playhouse, which seems to have escaped everyone today. And although it's been about over 20 years since we worked together at Weather Vane Playhouse in Heath, Ohio, those memories are really still vivid to me. Our first summer that we spent, we worked literally from morning until the wee hours of the following morning. We'd rendezvous up at Big Bear. Yeah, Big Bear at 161 in Carl Road. And we would drive, we'd make the long trip down to Heath. And then at night, we would bundle up under a blanket together when it was a chilly night, and we would go back home together in the wee hours of the morning. My first part that I had to play at Weather Vane was as a courtesan. For those of you that don't know what that means a prostitute. I didn't have the right attributes to really pull it off. And so I would always try to get my courage by eating. We all do that occasionally. And there was a Hostess thrift shop down the street. I used to walk down there and I would get snowballs, the Hostess snowball cupcakes. One day, Mr. Lewis happened to pass by while I was eating those and observing the shape of the cupcakes said, "Forget it, Ginger. It'll never work." I didn't take it to heart at the time because the poor man was on another one of his many diets, and actually I was rather pleased to see that he had something funny to say instead of what his usual insightful remarks such as, "Did you know that celery takes more calories to eat than are in it?" I left that summer with a case of bronchitis and total exhaustion, but that didn't stop me from coming back the next season. It was a summer afternoon. I remember the phone call. Mr. Lewis was on the line and he needed my help. He'd had a temperamental actress have a tantrum and take a hike, and he had a part that he needed to fill as soon as possible. Would I be willing to do it? Sure. Anything for the big guy. After he got that commitment, then he said, "It opens in 48 hours. I said, "No problem." Then he added, "It's Moliere." No problem. Much later, he added, "You have to sing." Sing? Well, I went on stage, the show went on, and so did I, with a song in my part and a lump in my throat, but we pulled it off. Many years later, I went back to Heath on a pilgrimage to try to check out the old barn, and it was nothing but a pile of rubble. But that Hostess thrift shop was still there. I didn't stop because, Mr. Lewis, you're right, they don't work.
I'll trade stories with her. I saw later, I saw Virginia at Players Theater in probably one of the finest productions I've ever witnessed of Abelard and Heloise. And she was she was Heloise, I'm sorry. She was Heloise, and it was, I think, Ed Graysick's, one of Ed Graysick's first shows at Players Theater, and it was a magnificent production. And the last time I saw her on stage was Tally's Folly, and then I saw you something at Catco, and I can't remember the name of it. It was a strange play. I remember that. Thank you.
You see Mr. McAfee getting ready here. We couldn't really have something without having it be educational. I mean, it's only fitting.
The overhead projector man.
So we called upon the head man, the big guy, whatever we want to call him here at Fort Hays, and so we want you to get ready to be educated.
I think we have this. Good day, Mr. Lewis. Good to see you. Oh, there we go. He would tend to do that a lot. Glad you could stop by today, Dr. McAfee. Glad you could stop by today. That's a famous line, but we're glad that you could stop by today, Mr. Lewis. I've been with him a while, and I probably know him in some degree, maybe differently than some others here. We've been in some battles, and we've been in some love wars and so forth, so this will be interesting. I did survey, probably many of you were involved in this survey, of why Chuck is retiring. Now, a part of this, we've been working on this thing for 5 years because every year he was going to retire. So hopefully we've got this program down. So there are reasons, for those people who have ever been in a class with Chuck, particularly at Northland High School, because we changed his thinking down here, but if you would travel to 131, this is what you would see a lot of. You would see the famed overhead, and Chuck would be in front of his stage, am I right, theater students? And then he would work this overhead as he would hand out all these dittos and all this kind of thing, and look at you as he looked to see what was going on in his office and then run to answer the telephone if we didn't get it in another area. But what we surveyed, folks, was the 10 reasons for the retirement. Let's see if I can get this now. I'm not as good as Chuck at this thing. The 10 reasons for the retirement of Charles D. Lewis, Jr. The survey revealed these. Now, there was a tie for 10. The 10th position was his dog Sam now has to be taken out at least 5 times a day. And tied with that, because at his age he requires more time to mow the lawn. Number 9 in this survey, some of his former students are now getting close to retirement and need his job. Number 8, the survey revealed, his classroom set of dittos have worn out and films are no longer available for classroom use. Number 7, he desires to become an antique show roadie and breed hippopotamus. Now you gotta know Chuck to understand that. You have to ask him about that. And then number 6 of the top 10, he has been in the business long enough to have done all the plays. Now we move to the top 5. Okay, about thank you for the assistance. It's just like Chuck would do, a little techie work here and everything. Well, he'd get angry if something fell apart on the stage, folks. Believe me, he would scold me. If I ever walked up to a microphone and ever touched it, oh, God, I was lectured. You never touched a mic, it will be on, McAfee, it will be on. And you know, it always was. Number 5. To use his high ladder skills, he now has a job next year as an outside window washer at the Beck Lincoln Tower. Those of you know him, he does not climb ladders. And number 4, wants a job as the library curator for the Richard M. Nixon Memorial Library.
Certainly, yes, sir.
His little tag at the Republican earlier might can understand that one. Okay. And number 3 here, his fear that he would get fired at Fort Hays, would have to return to Northland and once again have to put up with Chuck Deo, Elaine Bolts, Art Signori, fix the football field phones, and do halftime show announcements. Now we're getting closer to number 1, and probably as the general public is always right. But here's number 2 that I understand is I wasn't aware of this one. That he wants to have time to train and play football for Frank Howell. I think Frank told me he was still going to coach. By God, at Denison. So maybe you could go back after a doctor or something at Denison and play for Frank. But the number 1 reason why Chuck is indeed retiring, and this is the truth, folks, this is the truth. Jean, his wife, told him to, and he always does what she says.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We can make a quick change here. I'm going to bring up, while I do this, if I have Linda and, I got all these stage crew people around here and nobody's doing any work but the guy putting on the show. Well, I mean, what do they do, retire? If I could bring Linda and Christina, whoever's doing the shtick, let us come up here. And Chuck, for about a year you yelled at me, or everybody in this school, because you were missing a microphone stand. My God, that's all I heard for 4 or 5 months. They took my microphone stand. You'd never believe how they misuse equipment. What do you do with the things, McAfee? Well, you always put them back. Well, Chuck, I want you to know, just so that your inventory is complete when you walk out of Fort Hays, this is the missing microphone stand. I found it in the closet here in the shot tower.
That's right. That's right.
I knew it. I ran into it a couple of weeks ago and I thought, no, I'm going to do it today. Chuck, before we get into it, just a little medley. We have a few things here I want to give you. Now, I know that having worked with Chuck for a number of years, he's in the posture of breeding hippopotamus. And I also know that he's really taking an interest in what goes on in this building and enjoys seeing what the kids do at Fort Hays, and I know that for a fact. And I would like to present him this, so that if you open it up now. Those of you, again, know some of his interesting thinking. This was thought up by someone on the team here, and I solicited a student to work with it, and I'll tell him more about it. But what he now has is a garden hippopotamus.
I'll put this right next to Ken Valmackey's pink flamingo.
That's right.
Okay.
We're going to go into business. I'm going to do the hippos. He's doing the flamingos.
All right.
Then, Chuck, there's a few of us who do our thing, try to do our thing. And on behalf of a few individuals, we'd like to present this to you in your retirement days. We always like to think we can handle ourselves in this arena. We never have the time. But Chuck may have the time to do that. As we get set up to do our little shtick, I'll let Chuck open that.
Let's see. It's a lamp. I don't like this black paper. That's kind of ominous, isn't it? Let's see if I can get this off the end here. Okay, got it. It's a trick. Now, if my wife will just give me permission to use this, then thank you very much.
You should bring home some fish.
Thank you very much. I will put this to good use. Certainly will.
I think one, too. I said earlier when we were trying this thing, we've been practicing for about a year for this event. And I am not a drummer, but some of you may think so. I might look like one sitting behind her, but I'm not. I've already told the drummer in Joel's band not to fear. I'm not after his job. But for Louis, I guess I'm caught at doing anything. So I was recruited as this drummer in this little bit. And we'd like to just sort of salute you, Chuck, in a way that maybe only you can appreciate it. But we'll figure out how this thing goes. And this is a polished performance. I will do it for the record.
I want it to be made very clear, I did graduate from Brookhaven. However, I did marry a man from Northland, which will show you where my judgment is.
Good judgment.
Yeah. At any rate, when we first walked into this school, I took a look at Chuck and I told my husband when I went home, I'm not going to like working with that man. I'm not going to like it. You know why? I'm a type A and he's a type D. First couple of days, the first week of school, I said, "Good morning, Mr. Lewis." "What's good about it?" I'm really not going to like working with this man. That's what you said, Chuck.
I remember that.
Don't look at me like I was crazy.
I remember that.
Okay, just I want it to be clear here
Sure.
what the truth is. The other thing I learned about him, that although your friends are not people of short words, you are, and I learned one of them big time right off the bat. I said, "Mr. Lewis, do you think you could?" "No." I said, "Okay, so here comes yours, buddy."
Okay, thank you.
And some of this is straight and some of it's from the heart, and you'll just have to figure out which. I am retired in the morning. No more bells are gonna chime. Pull out the stopper, let's have a whopper, but get me out of here on time. I'm gonna sleep late in the morning. No more alarms are gonna ring. Girls go and kiss him.
Always did.
Show how you miss him. Get him out of here on time. If I'm dancing, roll up the floor. If I'm whistling, move me out the door. Oh, I am retired in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna chime. Up the rumpus, but don't lose. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. For Pete's sake, get me out of here. I thought about messing around with the words to this one. This is on the street where you live, and someone told me Mac for one thing, and I never ever fool around with what the Big Mac says. If he says it, that's it. He said this is your favorite musical that you ever directed, is it?
It's close.
Okay. I work with close. Okay. And it's on the street where you live, and I thought about saying, you know, at the fort where you walk and some sentimental stuff, but you know what? You can just walk wherever you want to walk now, can't you, bud? You can be wherever you want to be. You can live wherever you want to live. You can say good morning to anybody you want to now, and probably it'll be Jean most of the time. That's great, isn't it? Am I going to cry? Jesus, I hope not. I have often walked at the fort before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. All at once a long, sad old story is on.
I don't want him to live here very much longer.
Are there lilac trees in the heart of town? Can you hear a lark in any other part of town? Does enchantment pour out of every door? No, it's just on the street where Jean lives.
Stay in Calvary Court. We don't want you anymore, Chuck.
You may suddenly appear. People stop and stare. They don't bother me, for there's no place else on earth that I would rather be. Let the time go by. I won't carry my candy here at the fort where we live.
It was good. It was good.
No, you say not.
Oh, not.
Not.
I blew it, Chuck. Give me
McAfee
a
blew his line. Get him back in his office. Let him be an administrator. You're out of showbiz, bud. What's this next one? Oh, I know this one. All right.
The Lord above gave man an arm of iron, so he could do his job and never shirk. The Lord above gave man an arm of iron, but with a little bit of luck, someone else will do the bloomin' work.
Not Chuck. Chuck never did work. Kids all did it all. That it?
We're not going to quite end yet, although I'm starving to death. I don't know about the rest of you people. I've never been to a place where so many people have so many things to say. Jean, this one's for you, honey. Take a cue.
Don't talk of plays, don't talk of cross. If you're in love, show me. There'll be no scenes filled with desire. If you're on fire, show me. Here we are together in the middle of the night. Don't talk of lights, just hold me tight. Anyone who's ever been in love will tell you that this is no time for a chat, for God's sake. Haven't your lips longed for my touch? Don't say how much. Show me. Show me. Don't talk of work. Don't be a jerk. Make me an undying vow. Show her now.
Every single one of us who've ever taught in the performing arts has had to have a really, truly understanding mate, and that's what that one's is about. So, Jean, it's your turn now. This next piece, and almost the last, I promise, is one from all the leading ladies that you have put in the spotlight. And there they were in the spotlight in these beautiful gowns, singing this lovely music, and everybody saying, "Aren't they wonderful?" And the guy that should get the credit is the guy in the light booth calling the show. And I just gave my high school theater person, Mr. Wilt, a terrible time. I never memorized I remember, well, I'm going to tell you that. But anyway, I do remember that I didn't memorize my lines on time very often. I usually had lost my script and didn't know where it was and didn't have the guts to tell him. But at any rate, you know, Chuck, I know what it's like for you, sitting back watching the show and knowing that someday the kids will turn around and say thank you. And I've done that a lot with Mr. Wilt from Brookhaven, but this one's just from the leading ladies that you put in the spotlight, and let them sing.
Then I couldn't go to bed. My head's too light to try to set it down. Sleep, sleep, I couldn't sleep tonight. Not
Chuck never danced.
I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I've never done before. I'll never know what made it so exciting. Why all at once my heart took flight. I only know when they come to dance with me, I could have danced, danced, danced.
Well, Chuck, we didn't have as long a time here to get to know your face and your moons and your moans and your groans, but you know what? In a very short amount of time, we got the point. You're a wonderful man. And now I'm going to quit being sentimental. I'm going to cry and not get this last song. I hate it when I don't get the last song. So this one's just very simply for you, and I hope McAfee doesn't mess it up with any dumb lines. Don't say anything, Mac.
We've grown accustomed to his face. He almost makes the day begin. We've grown accustomed to the tune. He can't whistle night and noon. His moans, his groans, his ups, his downs are second nature to us now. Like breathing out and breathing in, we were serenely independent and content before we met. Surely we could always be that way again, and yet we've grown accustomed to his face, accustomed to his voice, accustomed to your face. We love you.
Thank you.
We continue to keep it light. I wish all the best in the world. We've been professionals and colleagues and partners in crime in some cases that we've had to connive to pull off education for young people, and Chuck has always been a classroom teacher focused towards helping kids. And to him, love, health, happiness, and success forever, Chuck. To a good friend, and I'm very proud to call him my friend.
McAfee screwed up the system, Jill says. I thought Jerry was going to tell about the Chase concert, but only a few people know about that, and they may not want anybody else to know. There are some others, I think, who want to say a few words, and I'm going to start with one person that I know has a presentation to make, and then we will let others of you say what you want to say. I know it's running long. Unlike the master, we didn't rehearse this, and we didn't time it out with a stopwatch the way he did. So,
but the race is going to be over in just a few minutes.
But you're taping it, dear. I just want you to know we do have food for you, so if you'll just hang in a little longer, we'll feed you in just a couple minutes. Ron Raybould had a mysterious package, and I think he wants to present that.
Oh, here it comes.
There probably isn't anyone who has worked and played for a longer number of years with Chuck at school than I have. We opened up Northland together, and we've been here since this place opened with the academic high school, and all of that time, Chuck has been sending kids around. The Hers told you kind of. He would send them looking for a bucket stretcher. So I stopped at Northland on the way in today, and I went up to the biology room, and in the bottom drawer of Deo's desk, found this moldy old cobweb-covered bucket stretcher with a corner bolt. Deo didn't know it was in there. He was out calling Bob when this was placed in his drawer. That's kind of inside. Anyway, it would be a tragedy to let this show end without Chuck finding his bucket stretcher. So, here you are, good friend.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. The best one of those was the day I was editing a show tape, and I had all of this 1/4-inch recording tape that I'd cut out of the reel. And I saw this sweet, innocent young thing sitting there, and I said, "Would you take this tape over to Mr. Raybould and get the tape eraser?" She said, "Oh, sure." And she ran off, and the next thing I know, she came back, and I saw her sitting down at the desk, and she had one of those green art gum erasers, and she had each piece of tape, and she's erasing it. And they didn't have the heart to say, "Dear, I think you've been led down the path." And she finally, after about 20 minutes, somebody told her, and she got very violently upset with me, and I had to practically lock myself in the sound room to keep her from beating me up. But Ronnie was in on a lot of those things, and we had a great deal of fun. Actually, I know what this is, but I'm not going to put it to that use.
Okay, now's your chance. Anybody else want to stand up and say a word or two?
There's Dwayne Pelkey over there.
Dwayne's coming up. We really should have a former administrator say a word or two.
He was always the first teacher finished during open house because none of the parents could find him or his room. He also hid students down there someplace. I spent several hours every day tracking down student cuts. More often than not, they were with Chuck, building sets for the next production. Since there weren't enough students for all speech and drama classes, Chuck was also assigned to teach some English classes. But it really didn't matter what the title of the course was. He taught first-year speech anyway to all of them, every one of them. And you know, where's McAfee? Right there. I could never figure out why McAfee took Chuck to Fort Hays with him, because he knew what a lousy teacher he was at Northland. And I really don't understand why Chuck went to Fort Hays with McAfee. For a PhD from Union Furnace or Carbon Hill or some podunk town in Vinton County. Oh, pardon me. This is not a roast for Jerry. It's a roast for Chuck, or a Chuck roast or something like that. Seriously, Chuck Lewis was an extremely excellent educator. He really did work hard and expected much from his students. His productions were extremely professional. I remember Miracle Worker. and how he somehow built a pump that actually pumped water right up on the stage. I don't know how he did that, but it was fantastic. You know, he got tired of the same old stage, the same old set, so occasionally he put on a theater in the round or a theater in the square right there in the middle of Northland's lobby. That was outstanding also. He had many outstanding students, many of which you have heard of today, who went on to work professionally in the dramatics business. Probably his most famous student is Dwight Yoakam, the country music singer. Actually, I think, if I remember, Dwight did more acting for Chuck than he did singing for Mr. Davis. Chuck, retirement is wonderful. Good health in your golden years. You really deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Okay. Oh, okay.
Whether you folks know it or not, you owe me a great debt of gratitude. At least some of you do. Some of you love me, some of you hate me. If it hadn't been for me, this guy would have never graduated from college. I don't even know whether he knows who I am or not.
I know who you are. Your name is Dana Cox.
I came from Roanoke, Virginia, all the way to be here with this guy on this day. And the one thing that surprises me when I look out at this group, I never figured when I knew him in Ohio State University that he'd ever had this many friends.
My golly, you're great. I saw you back there. Yeah.
I was also privileged to be in his wedding.
Oh, thank you. The tuba six that John Crawford, who teaches broadcasting here at Fort Hays, brought in. John and I have worked on a number of shows. He gets these fantastic ideas in the middle of the night somewhere, and then brings them in on a little scrap of paper and says, here, can we build this? This is the design for the next show. And as we're cutting lumber, he always looks and he sees the worst piece of lumber in the shop, and he says, this piece of lumber wants to be in the next show. And we have put more pieces of lumber in a show that wanted to be there, and I think this is, well, actually this one's not really too bad. We put worse than that in.
And I think John must have found the board stretcher, because I saw that board yesterday and it was only 2 feet long. This has been a wonderful day, and it couldn't have happened. I hope I can get through this without the help of a lot of people. I hope that you'll all say thank you to those folks who were behind the screen for a lot longer than I told them they would be, and for the folks who helped get this all set up. There were a lot of sweaty workers here yesterday when the weather was a little warmer, and I'd like to thank Marcy Hain, Chris Swisher, who drafted her husband Ray and her son Joel Jr. That's what he told me. He said it was Joel Jr. And Susie Laird was here to help also. They served on the committee along with our daughter Jenny. There were a whole lot of cookie bakers. As I thought about having 200 people and maybe allowing 3 cookies per person, I suddenly realized, my God, that's 600 cookies. So Marcy and Chris talked me into sharing that responsibility, and they baked a lot of cookies along with Susie and Debbie Kemper Armitage and Stacy Gilg. My daughter Jenny baked some, and my sister came up and helped me bake my share. And I'd also like to thank our resident drink supplier, Jeff Pullins. Jeff works for RC, and so he provided all the ginger ale for our punch. And so I just wanted to thank all of those publicly, because nothing like this ever happens with just one person doing it. Now, Tim, I need that envelope there, the white one. The family has a little gift, and most of the family is up here in the center. They're sort of spread out here and over in here. We don't have a large family, but we say we have quality, if not quantity. And so there's something that Chuck has wanted for his study for a long time. And so that's what we'd like to be your gift. It's not in here.
give it to you.
You'll have to go out and purchase it. You can spend the summer doing that. I did want to say that the whole amount is not there because we expect you to go to work. We have one more little tribute to Chuck, and if you'll get those little papers that we left discreetly on all of the tables. I hope you know the song of Tennessee Ernie Ford's 16 Tons. One thing that we'd like for you to do, if you can, and I know you actors and actresses who are used to changes in the script and all that, we'd like you to say he and his and him in the places where it says I and my and mine and those things. Okay? Now I told Joel that I could introduce it, but I sure couldn't start it. So it's up to you, Joel.
We also need everybody to snap your fingers like this. I don't have the word. Okay, everybody. Some people say a teacher's made out of steel. A teacher's made of stuff that can think and feel. A mind and a body and a tortured soul. An ability to teach and to shine a bow. I taught 31 years. I was born one morning when it was cloudy and cool. I picked up my register and walked to the school. I wrote 42 names on my class roll. The superintendent said, "Zero across my soul." I taught 31 years. Next verse, same as the first. There's a student in every seat from wall to wall. I taught 31 years. Last verse. The bell rings out for my days unmade. I still have all of those papers to grade. There's a faculty meeting at 7, they say. Tomorrow's a meeting of the PTA. I taught 31 years. Tennessee Ernie Ford each Keep looking good.
Could I just say a word? And I said, sure.
Sorry. When he was this side and I was this side, we called him Sonny. Big burly guy, Sonny. Now, I'm going to take a cue from his two kids, and from now on, I'm not going to say, "Oh, kids, you know, this is my cousin Chuck, my mother's only son, my mother's brother's only son." I'm going to say, "I'm Chuck Lewis's cousin," like you're saying, "Babe." He knows who I go. Okay. After the tribute you people have paid for him today, it's really nice.
want to thank one person, and that's my wife, Jean. They say behind every successful man there's a equally successful woman kicking him in the rear end or whatever. But those of you who have been to any of our shows know that under special thanks it always says JTL, and every once in a while I have to explain who that is. Most people are aware that that's her initials, and she's listed under special thanks because she's the one who has to put up with everything on the other end. She also does all sorts of things for me, including planning what I thought was punch and cookies this afternoon. In fact, I had the 24-hour flu on Friday, so I didn't go to work. Actually, Linda Vaughn, who I've shared an office with for the last 4 years, sitting over here, encouraged me to take that Friday. And finally, after one person called the house and hung up when they heard my voice. I don't know which woman out here disguised her voice when I answered the phone and said, you know, I can't even remember what it sounded like, but I know it was a disguised voice, and said, "Is Jean there?" And I said, "No," and click. And then that's Heidi. Finally, I just said, when she came home from running some errands, I said, "I'm not going to answer the phone anymore. I mean, this is getting ridiculous here." You know, a number of things like that have happened in the last couple of weeks, and we've gotten some long-distance phone calls from people, and you know, as I look out over these faces here, I see, you know, I see people that I haven't seen for a long time. A young lady back there in a red and black dress who I just tracked down about 2 weeks ago, and her husband got this strange call. Her name is Susie Campbell, and her husband got this strange call in the evening from, you know, this guy on the other end saying, "I was her teacher at Northland High School." You know, this is probably going to sound real strange to you, but, you know, can you tell me about her? And, you know, it was one of those things where I saw that she probably lived in Chicago from a postmark on a letter she had sent me a long time ago. You know, I look at and see other people that I've been attached to one way, shape, or the other. You know, when you start in this business, the one thing you think about is that, well, you know, somewhere down the line you'll probably have 2 or 3 kids or so that become successful, and people ask me every once in a while, who's the most successful student you have, and you know, I can't pick out one. They've all become very successful individuals. Some make more money than others. Some get their pictures in national magazines. Other people produce things that other people go and see. But every one of them has become an important citizen of the country. And you know, people ask me that question, and it's very difficult for me to single out one person. You know, as my son and daughter have used the pickup line, yeah, it's easy to single that person out, but you know, trust me, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else does, and he has to pay taxes and all those other kinds of things, just like everybody else does. And so it's nice to see all of you here today, and know that at some point in time our lives touched, and that I think you've made me a better person because of it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. One thing on a lighter note, Johnny Carson retired Friday night. I'm doing it this year. And as I said to somebody, and I mentioned that, and they said, you know, just two fantastic men going out at the same time, and I said, yes, now if I can just keep from putting my foot in my mouth like Dan Quayle, we'll be all set. So thank you, and enjoy yourself for the rest of the afternoon. And the donation pot is up there somewhere. Enjoy. Thank you. Joel, thank you very much.
This is Jason.
Jason what?
Jason Ryan.
Jason Dean.
Jason Dean Ryan.
Aaron's around here somewhere.
Yeah, there's a
Over there
third
with
one
the
named
food.
Aaron.
And the one you always make fun of.
Oh, I got a couple this year, a lot slower than you are.
Oh yeah, well, I don't feel so bad then. Sleep.
So my mom is sitting back here.
And your numbers have given the whole thing. A whole enchilada. Want us to hold it up to your mouth? Wait a minute, Brad will get this. Right now, all I do is go to the park. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, she's been here and everybody's like,
Oh, she's not fancy.
no.
I'll keep that in mind.
Well, he does a good job of keeping. He does a good job of keeping.
Hey, Jim.
Gone surfing anytime recently?
No. I knew that those are the kind of things people remember.
That and what's it, rabbit suit one?
Oh, yeah.
Hanging from the top.
The doors and everything. Yeah, you should see my office now.
Building and administration together. I fire, hire, all sorts of things. Plus, I'm with the MP battalion right across the way here. So we were in here when